Hello everybody, my name is Sachin Bhandari and you're watching the Storyco's YouTube channel. As founders, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, team managers, many times we have to inspire our team members either to take a different action or to go beyond their comfort zone, so on and so forth. More often than not, because we do not have knowledge of storytelling and storytelling techniques, we end up speaking in assertions. So things like, we need to be more innovative, let's start today. The result of these kind of hollow assertions is that people, when they step out of the meeting, they do not remember anything and they do not really follow up on the message or the call to action that you delivered in the meeting. I was in one such meeting many years ago, back in my PR career, but our CEO took a different approach. So that's what this story is about, and this will probably help you figure out how to inspire your team members, and I'll also share with you some tips on being able to approach this in a structured and focused manner. So listen to the story and watch the entire video for the tips as well. So back in 2010s, I used to work with a PR agency. It was a fairly well-known PR agency and considered to be one of the best in the country. The growth was really fast at that point in time, and we were acquiring a lot of clients. We were making a good name for ourselves in the industry, but there was one problem, and that problem was that we were losing a lot of people at the junior levels. So the more we grew, the more people we lost at junior levels. People just wouldn't stick with the company for a host of reasons. Now, most CEOs that I know, especially startup founders, would accept this as a result or a undesirable result of hypergrowth. But our CEO, Valerie Pinto, did not want to do that. She wanted to figure out how we could turn into an agency where people wanted to come, do their work and also stay for a long period of time. And that is when she called for a team heads meeting. I was one of the team heads, so I was a part of the meeting as well. And the message from her was pretty clear. She wanted to tell us that we needed to take time out and invest that time and mentor our junior team members, which wasn't really happening because all of us were busy handling clients, bringing in clients, delivering on service, etc., etc. Now, she did not parrot the message. She narrated a story instead. So the story goes something like this. So one of our team members or one of our team heads in the agency, his name was Vivek Padiyar. Vivek was probably the most calm and collected person in the agency, as opposed to a lot of other people, including yours truly, who actually wanted to grab the spotlight. Vivek was always the guy who was building heroes around him. So his team always used to get the spotlight. He would never bask in the spotlight. So he had invested a lot of time in growing them up. So if we were people who were grabbing spotlights, Vivek was the one who was building a lighthouse so that he can give direction to other people. So that is how good Vivek was. So Valerie said, be like Vivek. And I remember walking out of that meeting, I was rather inspired. And Valerie had given us and me a clear standard to adhere to, a clear framework of how we should approach this particular problem. And I'm happy to share that in the following year, my team won the best team of the year award for a particular region, Western region, which was considered to be a pretty cool thing to do in that agency. And I know for a fact that that wouldn't have happened had I not attended this meeting and had Valerie not narrated this story and given us Vivek as the standard to adhere to. So that's how powerful the story was, and that's how inspired I was to change my ways and to invest more time and effort in people. So that's what stories can do. If you want to inspire your team, you should also think of stories that can inspire them as opposed to giving them hollow assertions. Now, how to do that? That is something which needs a little bit of practice, and it could also help if you have a few tips. That's exactly what I'm going to share with you. So stay with me. Now, let's say you are in a situation like Valerie. How do you approach that, and how do you communicate to a bunch of team members whom you want to inspire for a particular action? There are a few things you could do. There are a few things you should not do, but I won't get into that. I'll just talk about the things that you should do or you could do to communicate in a much more effective manner. Number one, prepare. Now, more often than not, leaders actually get into these kind of meetings or high stakes communication without actually any kind of preparation. So, prepare, and by preparation I mean that you understand what is the message that you want to deliver to a particular group. Along with the messages, you could also think of a few stories that you want to narrate so that your message gets delivered. So I don't think this needs hours and hours of practice. Even if you spend about 10 to 15 minutes before a meeting or the night before and just write down or jot down these points, that itself will make a world of difference. What it will do is that you will get a lot better results from your team members, from the meeting that you conducted, as opposed to without preparation. And I think just for that, 10-15 minutes of reflection, of preparation is a great investment, because the returns are disproportionate, right? That was number one. Number two, something that most story coaches and everybody else calls show, don't tell. Now, as opposed to speaking in assertions, so we need to be more innovative, etc., etc., you should speak in examples or in stories or in anecdotes so that people exactly understand what you are trying to communicate. So I'll give you an example. So the example is that, maybe you want to focus on higher value clients. So you would probably tell your team, hey, we should focus on higher value clients. You are just assuming that people understand exactly what high value or higher value clients mean. But if you don't want to assume, and if you want to ensure that they really understand and act upon this particular message, you should tell them we need to focus on higher value clients like, names of companies. Let's just say, I'm making an assumption, Mahindras, Tatas, Google, Apple. These clients need to have the ability to pay us XYZ amount per month or something like that. So that's the value, the kind of company and the value of the account. So you're leaving very little space for ambiguity, and that's how people understand, as opposed to when you are just making an assertion and letting the audience figure out what exactly you meant by your message. So that was number two. Number three, it's a trap that I think a lot of us fall into. I do that myself, and I need to be more conscious of it, is avoid talking about yourself. So mostly in meetings, when you are trying to inspire your junior team members or younger team members, or even team members who are your own age, I've heard a lot of CEOs, leaders go on and say stuff like, when I was your age, when I was at your level, I did this, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it really works, because what it reminds people or reminds team members is of their parents, because our parents used to talk to us like this. So please do not be vain. Try and put the spotlight on someone else, like Valerie did on Vivek in that particular meeting. That is going to get you better results, as opposed to speaking about yourself, because then the person is trying to sort of, you also are trying to guess whether the person took it in the positive way, or is the person trying to figure out why is this person talking about himself, he's so full of himself, etc., etc. That's not what you want the audience to leave with, right? So these were my 3 tips. Now, another interesting thing, whenever I narrate this story, sometimes, I get this feedback from people, because I use this story as an example, is that, but is it a good idea to compare team members with some other team member? So fair point, but my response to that is that Vivek was already somebody who was well known as a great team leader and having the best kind of attitude, so on and so forth. So there was no ambiguity, or there was no question in the entire group's mind that Vivek was a great standard to adhere to. And that is what I would like you guys to remember, or girls to remember, whenever you are speaking to somebody or your team members. You need to use your discretion as to whose story you can and cannot narrate. Now, if it is somebody whom the entire group respects, if it is somebody who's external, if it's somebody who's famous, all of those things, then you can narrate the story. But you probably do not want to narrate stories of peers, because your group or your team members who you are referring to may have a different idea of that person. So I guess that's one caveat that I wanted to leave you with. That's it from me in this video. As usual, a little bit about the Storyco. We are a storytelling training and coaching firm. We try to take good storytelling techniques and deconstruct them into easy to replicate models for business. That's exactly what I did with this particular video as well. If you have any questions about storytelling, communication in business, feel free to ask me in comments. Either I or one of my colleagues will get in touch with you and answer your questions shortly. That's it from me in this video. Till I see you in the next video. Story on.